It is now time to proceed to our next session, which is going to be another very interesting discussion, a panel discussion this time on global best practices in mobile marketing, covering Europe, the US, Middle East, and Latin America. We will have a group of 5 panelists who will be giving a 7 to 10-minute presentation to present their experiences from their respective markets, after which we will call all 5 of them on stage to start a panel discussion and take some questions from the audience. We will now start with Mr. Valli Lakshmanan. Let me give a brief introduction. He is the global head of Mobext. He started his career at Lintas in India, working on the Unilever brand. And before that, he quickly moved on to direct and digital, working for Compaq Tata Indica, which is a mid-sized Indian car brand. And then moving on to Euro RSCG in Singapore to lead the Dell business across the Southeast Asian region. During this time, he helped launch Dell in both Thailand and Taiwan, and so it emerged as the #1 PC brand in the small, medium business segment. So without further ado, Mr. Valli Lakshmanan, the global head of Mobext.
Good morning. I thought I wouldn't do any numbers today. No stats, no numbers, because I've got 4 of the guys going to do all the numbers for you. So the important part of presenting mobile is about talking about the future. I'm going to go back to 1800s and talk about somebody that I really like. In 1861, on December 1st, Lincoln came up with a letter. It's called the Emancipation Letter, which is about slavery, abolition of slavery and all of that in the US. And he said, as our case is new, we must think and act anew. I'm going to read that letter for you. It is an important letter that I think it is very prompt and important during the time of mobile. And when I read that, you realize why I'm doing that. I'm just going to read it now. The dogma of the quiet past or inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. I think there are some key words in this, which is, the first thing I like is disenthrall. I think when mobile started about 5-6 years ago, people started thinking that it's the same as digital. How digital evolved, mobile will evolve. I think it's completely wrong. I think mobile evolution is very, very different to a digital evolution. In the same way that in digital, you had different spaces to advertise, you have different ad formats, whereas in mobile, you have a very restrictive format of advertising. So in terms of content, in terms of reach, in terms of location, it's just a way more different medium. So the growth in digital is going to be was very different in how mobile is going to grow. So I'm going to focus on the next 5 minutes talking about what mobile can bring to the future, and then I'll let my colleagues talk about each country and each continent, what happened in mobile. And if you look at the last, let's say, 15 years, there are 3 silo segments that lived separately: people, technology, and design. These were they were not connected. They were all different. We never knew why a toothbrush was designed the way it was designed. Nobody asked that question. We go to a supermarket, buy a toothbrush, and don't ask questions as to why it was designed that way. Why is it that long, the handle is? Why is the bristles that long? We never asked those questions ever. It was designed for us, we went and bought it. And people never asked about what kind of a brush you like to use, and it was never asked that questions. So design existed separately, how technology existed, how people existed. I think what's happened now in the last maybe 18 months is people have realized that all these things are coming together. At the center of it all is what the experience is. I think Apple is probably the best example of explaining what experience transformed. I'm sure all of you must have had some input on Steve Jobs at some point in your life, must have quoted him at some conference and somewhere in your mails and all of that. But I think his biggest contribution to the world was bringing experience into a segment. I used to run Dell for whole of Asia and some bit of Europe as well. One of the best computers, but one of the worstly designed computers. I mean, somebody at Dell, I'm really sorry for that. But It's the worst designed computer in the entire history, but it's the cheapest that you'll ever get. But what happened with Apple, where Apple transformed the whole industry into, it's not just about features, it's not just about the processing power, it's about the experience of using a computer. So when you buy an Apple phone, I don't work for Apple, by the way, but I'm just a good exponent of the brand. When you open an Apple product, there's a smile, there's a warmth that you get when you open the brand. That's an experience that every brand wishes to deliver. When you open a toothpaste or a brush or a cup of tea, you just have to have that bit of smile in your face. Is that the experience that we're talking about, which mobile delivers now? So that the line that Steve Jobs said, which is, it's a transformation of what it looks like to what it means and how it works. I think this is the core of what the industry is moving towards, and I think both marketers and agencies and designers and all of the people that are here have to fundamentally believe that you've got to transform experience. That's the only way we can cut through and go to consumers. There's no other way. There's absolutely no other option we have right now to deliver a message which is beyond just a pure marketing message. So I'm going to quickly spend a minute on the three factors that mobile has truly changed. The first is speed, second is access, and third is connections. I think between all the presentations that you saw between Nick and Arthur and all of them, I think you see some brands that came often. Brands like Coke, Coca-Cola, brands like Volvo. You're going to see brands like McDonald's spoken about in the next 2 days again and again and again, because these are the brands that is done very, very well. And I'm going to take you through what the next 18 months is going to look like purely because of a mobile device. When it comes to speed, if you've been to Amsterdam recently, if you have a chance to go to Amsterdam, it's a beautiful city. If you go to Amsterdam, you'll realize that there is a drone that goes around the city in a specific zone. So if you're unwell, if you're not well, if you call for an SOS or a 911 or a 199 or whichever number that is in each country, ambulance takes time to get in. I mean, you guys know about Manila traffic. If somebody needs an ambulance, 5 hours later, you got to call now. Otherwise, you won't get the ambulance, because that's how much the traffic is. So these are essential services. These are life services. This has to happen at speed. So what they've done in Amsterdam is, if you send a message saying that you're unwell, and if you're having a palpitation, heart palpitation, you see a drone that goes around the house, drops you a medical kit in less than 2 minutes. So there's a kit that drops on, which you can use the kit to sort of defibrillate, and then the doctor or ambulance comes on and does with it. This wouldn't have happened ever if the device hasn't helped. This is where the speed comes to effect. I mean, I can go on and talk about speed. If you've been in the UK, you can book a taxi using some fantastic apps in the UK. It's one of the worst cities to take taxis, because you would probably pay your monthly salaries on taxis. That's how expensive that is. But again, there are these apps that's come along which reduces the cost of booking and cost of all of that. And speed has become vital, and mobile device is probably how it is. And I'm sure sitting in this room, you would have access to your Twitter, you have access to your Facebook, and posted news about the conference that you're attending. It's that the speed that we're talking about. That's what mobile's first manifestation is. Second one is access. I'm not sure how many of you have known about this product called Lockitron. It's a product that's come up in the US about 4 months ago. There's a bunch of two kids. One is a 19 and one is an 18-year-old. Put the age together, you'll get my age then. That's how young they are. And these guys have come up with a fantastic technology that allows you to open a door using a mobile phone. It looked very simple at the outset, right? But it's a massive use for all of that. People with kids will understand that the kids lose the keys most often than not when they come back from school. There's no way that they can get into the house because they've lost their keys. And they all have phones now, because kids about 10 years old needs a phone these days. My niece definitely has one, and she's 13 years old. And she loses keys like every 3 hours, and that's how bad she is in using her keys. When this came along, what happened was, she gets a key on a phone for the house, and she opens the door and gets in. My brother revokes the key after that, so which means she can't get out of the house. It's a fantastic use of mobile phone it's an interaction between a hard device, which is a door, and a device that's on your hand, which means you control things like, in the future, you'll probably be able to drive a car without having to sit in. Which means you can send the car out to the airport, get your mom or dad along the home without having to sit inside. I mean, that's going to happen, believe me. I'm sure Anand from Google is here somewhere, and he's going to talk about Google Glass at some point. I think Google Glass is going to be absolutely brilliant when they launch it. I don't know where Anand is right now. Somewhere he should be. And the third one that I want to talk about is connections. There's a restaurant in the US, in San Francisco, which about 4 months ago was there. There's a one-page menu which had about 5-6 items there, and there was no pictures on it. And normally you would like to see pictures of the food that you're going to eat because you don't know what you're expecting out of that. And what they did was, at the end of the menu, they had a line that said, with a hashtag on an Instagram. So when you go to the Instagram and look for a hashtag, it gives you pictures of all the elements on the menu, which was created by people, which means that people, when they come, there are many of you guys love to take pictures of the food that you eat, almost all of them do, and you hashtag it, and you put it in Instagram, and when you hashtag search for that, you see all the pictures of all the menu that is there in the list. And this is a co-created form of connections of people helping each other without even knowing each other. I wouldn't even know who you are, but the menu, but the photograph that you took about a food that I want to eat, I'm ordering that now, but I don't even know who you are. So these are the connections that we make, which we don't even know each other. I think these are the three fundamental aspects of how mobile changes the aspect of the future. And if you don't get these things, and if you don't get that the consumer is in a hurry, not because they have less time, it's just that they have to get that faster, better, and they have to get it in a co-created space, which is what mobile can do, which digital cannot promise. The things that I'm talking about are things that digital cannot do. So I'm not talking that mobile complements digital. Mobile actually is better than digital when it comes to things like these, speed, access, and connections. So what you're going to see in the next maybe an hour and a half is some cases in each of the continent that we've done, which elaborates on these aspects of speed, access, and connections. And hopefully by the end of it, we'll be able to answer some questions, whatever way you might have. So thank you for the time.